Good morning, everyone. I would like to start with, can I start with prayer? Do you mind if I start with prayer, just to tune you in? These are from my book, The Power of Holy Language. And this prayer is called A Time for Holy Listening. Lord, today I enter in silence. Today I listen for the sound of how you express yourself in my life. In ancient days, you spoke through the wind and through fire, through storms and the movement of the sun. And the ancients saw you everywhere and in everything, and they recognized your presence in nature and in the forest and in the whisper of leaves rustling to silent breezes everywhere. Our thinking today is that they were foolish, frightened human beings, little more than cave dwellers wandering a primitive earth. But perhaps not. Perhaps they were filled with clarity, unencumbered with doubt. They stood on a silent earth, a clean, pure earth, empty of noise. Everything was fresh and unpolluted. They saw you everywhere because you were everything to them. They recognized their vulnerability and were filled with the humbleness that came with dependency upon sacred power. I do not know how to listen for you fully yet in nature. I've grown accustomed to listening to my mind for instructions. I do not know how to find you in the many distractions and the noise in my mind. I do not know how to be silent fully and completely from within. But I will begin by creating a silent world around me. With closed eyes, I can imagine myself approaching a holy well deep within me. I drop a single pebble into that well, and I listen for the delicate sound of one pebble slipping into the softness of the holy center of my being. And there, in the sacred, silent inner place, I shall wait for you. You know, I'm going to begin this morning by describing holy language for you. I want to frame that, and I thought I'm going to do something very bold that I've never done ever in my life. I'm going to read how I describe it in my book, which is not published. I just sent it to my editor, and I haven't done this yet. I may get kicked in the tuchus for this. But there are many types of holy language, and I want to give you a frame, and then we'll take it from there. So this is from chapter 2, and I'm just going to describe it the way I present it in the book, if that's okay with you. Okay, the soul has a language of its own, as rich as the language of poetry, love, romance, and as essential as the language of the psyche, human anatomy, and every other area of expertise. All the many specialty languages have words in common as well as words unique to that field. This is true for the language of the soul. Of all the specialty languages that exist, however, only the language of the soul is holy. Holy language is holy because it's a conduit of grace, of hope, of inspiration, and the possibility of divine intervention in our lives. Holy language, unlike any other use of words, provides the means through which we can access the divine. Holy language is comprised of the many forms of expression we use, such as prayer, chanting, and chanting with the intention of reaching through to the realms of the sacred with the hope that the divine will respond to our call. A prayer for help, for inspiration, for guidance is said in faith that in some unexplainable way that prayer is heard and assistance is given to us, specifically to each one of us who asks for aid. The holy language of prayer is a conduit of divine intimacy, a means for asking for and receiving guidance that is given in ways often hidden to the individual. We thrive on holy language in any of its expressions, the graces of faith, hope, trust, inner counsel, endurance, and fortitude, among so many others, soothe our inner lives unlike any other force. The divine bestows these graces upon us abundantly because the journey of life is often and so easily experienced by us as difficult, unfair, unjust, frightening, hopeless, isolating, lonely, and even brutal. Ordinary words shared in conversations frequently fail to comfort us when we are weakened by such life circumstances. But an infusion of grace delivered to your soul telling you, you will get through this. You will. This will end. Somehow shifts everything, and just like that, hope is ignited. We are spiritual beings, and holy language is our nectar. So, there are core expressions of holy language which I'm listing, though not in order of importance. The language and wording used in sacred rituals. Sacred rituals span the cycle of life, including birth, marriage, ordination, last rites, bar and bat mitzvahs, confirmation, confession, healing rituals, the closure of life, and less familiar rituals such as exorcisms. That is also holy. The sacred rituals of Wicca, Druid, and all traditions associated with nature. Personal sacred rituals. Now, all of you have a sacred ritual in your life, or 2 or 3, even if you don't know it. The way you get dressed in the morning, do you have a ritual? If you don't think it's sacred, you are mistaken. If someone tampers with your rituals, I assure you, you will let them know. I assure you. I, for one, need a long runway to lift off in the morning. I need it because my day is so busy. My day is so chaotic. I have so many phone calls, so many emails to attend to, so much commotion at the human level, that the time that I know I won't be disrupted is early in the morning. I need to get up very early to get myself ready to teach, ready to be social, because I am essentially an introvert. I am a creature of the inner world, and I have to rev up to become a creature of the outer world. I don't socialize much at home. I live alone. And I prefer a very quiet life. I never go to parties. I keep a very small circle of friends. So I'm an introvert. So for me to extend to a circle of people takes a lot of effort. And I find that is exhausting. So I need a long runway to lift off. So it's a ritual for me. Now, all of you have those rituals. You have sacred objects on your desk, if you have a desk, but most people have a desk, or they have a dresser, and if people tamper with those things, who touched them? Who touched them? You are without mercy. Without mercy. Someone can move your shoes, it's not a big deal. Someone touched your sacred objects. And only you know why they're sacred, but for someone else, they are a dish. They're nothing. But for you, you have infused them with something that they are channeling, a memory of a beloved. The energy of a sacred place you've been to. This bracelet has the Madonna on it from places I have been that means something to me. She's the Madonna of miracles. And I know how powerful she is. But it probably means nothing to anybody else but Beth. But I know who she is. So we all have that. And you have that. We cannot live without it. Regardless of how you have separated from anything traditional, you cannot separate from heaven. It's not possible. Not even atheists or agnostics, who usually are separated from a traditional church. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. But you cannot separate from the holy cosmos. You can separate from the language of it. You can separate because you have an issue with priests, or you have an issue with, you think it's all about money or all this. But you're being pedestrian and you don't get it. You don't get it. Most everybody I know, let me reframe this for you. Are you married? Let me reframe this for you. I've been teaching for some time. Decades. I'm into my second generation of students. And without a doubt, the majority of people who have wounds that they share with me, these wounds come from their childhood, which means they come from products of bad marriages. Bad marriages. Marriage is a sacred institution. Now, sacred. So you would think that in keeping with throwing out everything else sacred, that they'd throw out marriage and say, oh, duh, I'll never get married, just like the church. Duh. But they don't. Why not? Why haven't we tossed that institution out along with everything else? It has violated people. It is the source of incest, more sexual crimes than you can shake a stick at, more betrayal, more violence than you can shake a stick at. There's nothing the church has done that could compare with the violence in a marriage, than the brutality and the violation of children. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But people flock to it. They can't wait to get in it. Oh, yeah. People can't wait to get married.
I wish my daughters would get married.
Well, and there you go.
They don't get married anymore. They just...
But that's your daughters. But trust me, people are getting married all the time. Look at all the dating services. Look at Match.com. It's an industry. So do you understand? It's just a very curious thing, how we have relegated what we resent about the sacred and what we don't. We're very site-specific. And what it is we resent, and that's what I will explain to you, is the organization of sacred ritual and who's in charge of us and who's dictating the nature of God. That's what we don't want. Okay. Another form is individual prayer. It's sacred ritual. Meditation. Holy rituals around holidays and other celebrations. Now, how many of you have sacred rituals around your holidays, or do you just have a holiday, or do you do nothing at all? That's a lot of questions in one. How many of you have a holy ritual around a holiday? How many of you have no holiness about the holiday at all? It just comes and goes.
I don't know if it's holy. It's ritual. It's cultural.
It's cultural.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But
there's
I don't
nothing
know that
sacred about it for you.
Yeah. Try.
Yeah,
Good.
it goes like this, but you have to
So I happen to be Jewish, but I don't necessarily subscribe to everything. But there's
But
culture.
Hanukkah,
Yeah. So there's.
do you like the candles?
Yeah, we do.
Well, there it is.
But I don't know that it's sacred.
It is. Trust me. It is. That's sacred. Okay. You may not want it to be, but it's too bad. Okay. The language of prayers and inspirational writings of spiritual teachers. How many of you read spiritual teachers? Mystics, poets, writers, any of that, you put sacred language in you in one way or another. For how many of you is that important? Do you find that I need that vocabulary in some way? That it does something for you that other words don't. Now that's an important thing that we're going to focus on a great deal. Did you notice the difference between the vocabulary used by the spiritual writers or inspirational writers and what that does for you versus the vocabulary that is in just ordinary writing? That it actually seems to change your bio-spiritual chemistry. And I'm going to emphasize this because what holy language is vocabulary. One of the things I want to talk to you about is that what got me into this, and I'm going to shift when I'm finished, we're going to go, is that I noticed that people didn't have the vocabulary to heal. They didn't have the right words in their head. That it wasn't that no matter what they were trying, they're homeopathics, they're this, they're that. Part of the problem was they didn't have the words in their head. They didn't have a holy enough vocabulary. And just as a disclaimer, everybody knows I come from a Catholic tradition. That said, there's nothing about what I'm teaching that comes from, that I'm not like out to make converts. I teach from all traditions. And number two, I believe the era of religion has come to an end. It has come to an end, and that's part of the rocking and rolling in the heavens that you are actually experiencing in your psyche, that we are actually living on the earth, that it's the end of that era of traditional religions, and that we're shifting into the era of bio-spiritual, the ecological nature of God. I find it thrilling. The church doesn't, but I do. Okay. The language, another form of sacred, is how it's in sacred music, sacred dance, art, and these are the three, among the three oldest expressions. The art in caves, the dancing. Another is action made holy through intention. Through intention, in any way, knowing or even unknowingly. For example, when we act with holy intention toward others, in private, publicly, when we are expressing holy language through our intentions, praying for the healing of someone or sending loving or positive energy or thoughts, as we often tell people to do when they're going through a difficult time. The holiness generated through the language of action, for example, acts of human compassion, courage, sacrifice, anything like that. That is a form of holy language. People who offer their homes to those in need, any kind of physical presence, anything, any act of kindness, any way in which we are of service is living holy language. So it's not just what you speak. It's how you perceive. We are now, I want you to shift gears. We are now in the era of the psyche. We are now in the era of subtle, where we are relating to each other as much in energetic dialogue as we are in physical. We are in, another way to put it is, we are in the era of multi-communication. We are in the era of hologram. So that the loudest language we speak is the silent one. where when we are with each other, no matter what you say, what you are transmitting is far more accurate than what you're saying. Which is why, how often do you walk away from someone saying, I don't know, it didn't feel right, or I don't know, I felt like I know what I heard, but I felt like what was being told to me, or it didn't feel, every one of you knows what I'm talking about. But what you need to know is that's how people are reading you. You need to know you are, it's so much fun. Whenever I say this, people go, you're kidding me. That you don't get that you are as transparent as others are to you. You are just as transparent. People are reading you all the time. You don't have a secret, and that's alarming. That's alarming, isn't it? Isn't that alarming? Yeah. Here's something that to keep in mind that may, just like the new rule. And we're entitled to privacy. I don't think that that's something, but not secrets. Secrets are dangerous things. Secrets say you're up to something. They belong to the shadow. Privacy belongs to the light. Privacy is a matter of respect. You don't have a right to read my mail. I don't have a right to read your mail, or bust into your bedroom, or go through your closet. This is your private life. But if in a family or in a close relationship or in a business, secrecy means you're up to something, or secrecy means I'm up to something. Except a birthday party. You understand? But secrecy means you're heading toward the dark passage of privacy. And that's when and someone can sense when you're up to that. You can sense it. Anyway, but the area of holy language I became most intrigued with is how we use the language of the holy in our everyday life, in our everyday thinking, and how it filters into how we make decisions. Does it influence us? Do you pick a word? Do you use the words in any way to form the sentences, like when you're making a decision? Do you pick a word like, I have to think about this? Or do you say, I need to reflect on this? Each word is a different universe. Think is a fast word. Reflect is a deep word. Reflect has grace to it. Think has nothing to it. Think is mechanical. Reflect is holy. And it creates a whole different atmosphere within you. Now, I need to hit the pause button there as I kind of give you this, and I need to take you back and talk a little, and then and add some details here about the larger context in which we're living, and then bring you into you, because it is extraordinary to me how much we don't realize the world around us and how much it's influencing us, because we don't see the forest for the trees. Day by day goes by, and we don't realize what is changing around us and how that is changing us from within, and how very much this world has changed. And we need to understand from a different perspective the handiwork of heaven in this world that we're in. And you need to maybe get a lens on how the handiwork of heaven is involved in what we're doing, so that we don't just translate events on earth through the eyes of human beings. That's the most dangerous place you can go, because you'll fall into the trap of what Buddha calls illusion. And that's when you'll lose your power the most. So, okay. Now my trusty pen. I know that many of you have been with me before, and it's very endearing to my heart to see you here again. But may I ask who's never been with me? Okay. I start with, I always caution people, I have very few drawings for which you'll be very grateful. But the ones I do have are pretty useful. And I like to start with my building. Everybody knows my building. But this is you. Here's the penthouse. And I'm going to be referring to this all the time. And the reason I use this building, and I hope you take it with you the rest of your life, is really so effective. Because we really do live in our own building. And every floor is a different view of the same world that you live in. Every floor. You look out a different window in a building, and someday actually do this. Someday, with a view in mind, actually do this and take an elevator to a different floor and look out and actually appreciate the different vista in the same building and actually tell yourself that you are looking through yourself. And that if you pushed yourself through an idea that you know is not real, the landscape of your life would expand that much. It would expand that much. That it would be that incredible. That in the first floor of your life, it's important to understand you take everything literally. You need to get that. You take things at face value when you're on the first floor. And when you're on the first floor, your 5 senses are at their maximum speed. Maximum speed. And your soul is way in the background. So when you're in the first floor, this is really, really, really where your 5 senses will tell you. Your appetites are on maximum level on the first floor. Your cravings are on maximum level. So if someone said it's not real, that's where you're going to put up the biggest argument, is on the first floor. Right there. When you are craving sugar or craving honey, that would be me, or going into any kind of argument with somebody that something wasn't fair, that something was unjust, that it shouldn't have happened to you, you are on the first floor. So everybody has an apartment here. And this is the place in your life where you want things to work out just for you. Where you want to look out the window and you actually think the world revolves around you. And that's on the first floor of your life. On all of the first floor of our lives, we look out the window, we see the smallest possible world, and we can't figure out why it doesn't revolve around our front lawn. Okay? This is also when we look at the world around us, from our first floor, the world around us. This is where you will tend to read the newspaper and believe what you read, because it brings the news to your door. Well, that's what's going on. I read it in the paper. Okay? I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother, all my grandparents came from Europe. And my grandparents, it was, going to college was a big deal. My grandparents were all from farms and, immigrants, and they came over when they were 15 and 16. I still can't get over it. And the older I get, the more incredibly impressed I am with the journey they made, Really brings tears to my eyes when I think of the journey they made as kids. And so college, They didn't even go to high school. They didn't even have you understand? And, but for my grandmother, especially my Busha, going to college was great, but then you got married. You got married. This is how life was. The first floor dictated how life was. She also believed that if you read it in the newspaper, it was so. So whenever she wanted to manipulate, she'd say, I read it in the newspaper. So when I went to graduate school, that was something she never even heard of. A school after a school? Going to school in your 20s? What was that? That meant that you was too stupid to get, right? Something went wrong in your teenage years if you were still in school. That was my grandmother's, right? What's wrong with you, you know? So I told her, we went out to lunch, and all my other cousins by my age were engaged and off and marrying doctors, right? I mean, I could have been the person who discovered, the cure for cancer and ended world peace. And I was nothing next to the woman who, an ex-con who married a doctor. So anyway, I'm out with her, and I said, Busha, I'm going back to school. And she looks. She said, what's wrong with you? And I said, nothing. I want to go back and I want to study this. And she had a martini. And she goes, and she looks at me and she says, girls who go to school too much die young. And I said, what? Where did you hear that? I read it in the newspaper. I'll never forget that. She enchanted me. She enchanted me. Her name was Caroline. She enchanted me. I adored her, but she made things up. And she cheated at cards. And she taught me to play poker. But that's your first floor. And I need to emphasize that because it also has a vocabulary of its own. It has a very sticking vocabulary here. This is your vocabulary of superstition. This is the vocabulary of how you know God in superstitious language. And it's thick in you. It's in your DNA. This is the God you fear. This is the God. I have a friend, one of my dearest Jewish friends, when he talks about God, he throws salt over his shoulder. I said, why do you do that? Well, keep away the bad spirits. Superstitions. This is the part of you that actually fears that if you get too close to God, God will take your money. This is the unconscious fears that you may not admit to, but yes, indeed, you have. And this comes from the teachings that go a long way back in our traditions. That say this is the part that believes if you're a good person, bad things won't happen to you. How many of you have that? One person? 2, 3, how many of you have that? All right, I'll do it a different way.
Right.
I'll get you. How many of you have ever said, I don't deserve this? Hands up. Or have ever said about someone else, they don't deserve that. Whether it's you or someone else, you have that little formula in your head that someone doesn't deserve something because they didn't do anything bad. Well, who's in charge of that mechanism? Where's the keeper of the deserve lever? Ooh, it goes that way. It's God. Because someone's the keeper of that deserve lever Someone pools it, and that's God. And that is right there. And that's in your first floor. And that is attached to your sense of what makes justice or injustice. It goes right to follow the thread. You know, you follow the money, follow the thread. And this goes to how you have constructed a whole cosmic court. The judge, the jury, and what you think how the world should run in terms of what is fair and what is not fair. And that is totally constructed for you in a cosmic court around the God you think lives off planet. And whether you believe in a religion or not is irrelevant. You have a cosmic off-planet God that operates a courtroom. And in this court, bad things should not happen if you are a good person. Oh, no, they shouldn't. And if they do, you want justice. And further, because you buy into this mythology, because you buy into this, you really feel you are owed an explanation. You are owed it. And you should be given some kind of recompense for suffering. By God, you should be. Because it happened to you. Or am I wrong? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. This explains the human condition. This explains vengeance, our inability to forgive. This is life on the first floor. This is life on our first floor. This is what happens when we think we're the center of the universe, and that the world was created for us, and that everybody else's life doesn't really matter. Ours does. Ours does. That they're not allowed to make any mistakes or have any bad actions or have bad childhoods or be beaten up. What only matters is what happens to us. What happens to us. It's only our safety that matters. Nobody's allowed to leave us. We're allowed to leave them. And as much as we think, I know people have stories of the most brutal, wicked, hideous, heinous childhoods. I mean, God, look at these stories we hear where the police discover kids that have been held captive for years and years and years, and you think, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, how did that happen? Look at those women that guy named Castro, Ariel Castro, had tied up for 10 years. My God, these horrible people that kidnap women and do that. Okay. The extremes to which human beings are capable of abuse is off the charts. But still, that does not say there is not a God. It says we are incredibly dark and have an incredibly dark potential, and it's in all of us. We may not be capable of that, but we're capable of reaching our own extreme, wherever that may take us. And that's what is true. I don't know what my extreme is. I do know I haven't been there. I do know I don't want to go there. But I suspect in my own way, my own extreme is as ugly as that person's extreme is, given a ratio of what ugly is. Do you understand? Okay, So that's what we have to kind of get. Now, that's what happens when what we learn from this is when we take the world literally, and when we expect this world to be a place that it is not. Like Buddha would say, when you take everything literally, it will hurt you. It will hurt you. When you take an illusion literally, it will hurt you. When you take everything personally, it will hurt you. Because there's nothing personal in this world. Nothing. Nothing. Not even your body is personal. As outrageous a thought as that is. Here's a huge thought. Not even your body is personal. The physical body was not created for you. You've got one in this life. But the physical biology system was not created for you. We all got one. It's our traveling package. But the physical body was not created for me. This is just the package we come in. Do you understand? It's not personal. I'm not the only one with 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 ears. We all have it. So there's nothing personal about my design. I have a personal look to my design, but my design's not personal. Do you get the difference here? Medicine is based on the fact that there's nothing personal about our bodies. Now, as we go up each floor, the vocabulary changes. Just like it would if you look out a window. All of a sudden you can see water, or you can see a river, you can see the Hudson. You can't say Hudson down here because you can't see it. So that word doesn't fit here. But as you go up in yourself, you're going to change vocabulary. You're going to change perspective. This is what's so significant. And with perspective, you change power. You become empowered. You are powerless here. Come here, get that. You are powerless here because you're looking out. And when you're looking out, everything looks, what you're doing on your first floor is you are looking at everything that has power coming toward you. Coming toward you. Every person. You're afraid of every single person. And on your first floor, every one of us looks separate because I'm looking at your form. I cannot see your soul. So I don't use the word soul. Because I'm looking at your form. I'm looking at Josie. I'm looking at Colleen. I'm looking at your forms. There's nothing I see. I can't see through you yet to our energetic connection. And so I have to look with my 5 senses. And because I'm looking through my 5 senses, my lower frequencies would be scanning you through my lower frequencies, sensing for, and here's an operative word. This is a first column, first floor word, danger. That's not a holy word. That's a survival word. That's not an inclusive word, that's a separation word. Now, I need to add something here. Here's you. There's you. Every word you say, every word you think is an act of creation. If you see a human being and you decide that person's danger, you send a signal. You're sending a signal. You're sending a signal to yourself that you are now in a defensive. It's an illusion. What is dangerous about any of you? What is dangerous about, have you been jumped by most people you've met in your life? Have you? Have you been beaten up by most people? But I bet you've told yourself you're intimidated by most people, only to discover they've been harmless. They've been harmless. They've been totally harmless. And yet that's not what you told yourself at all. And so the signal you gave out and the order you gave out to yourself was to hemorrhage. Was to hemorrhage. Was to create a circle of fear around you. And to vibrate that fear. That's the power of the words you used. Versus the language from up here, which is holy language. Versus the capacity to see through a field of grace. Grace. This is the word energy, but up here is holy. This is the word grace. Okay, so now I'm shifting gears and going to a larger overview, and we'll get back to that. But isn't that interesting?